Well, welcome along to Sportsbet.io's Euro podcast. This time focusing on the action in Italy. Serie A has been absolutely fascinating. There are plenty of fascinating stories around the league at the moment as well. Daniele Verri, as always, our friend in Italy, joining us today. Daniele, we're going to start with less of a focus on a game and more of a focus on a club. A very quick chat about Roma. So, since you and I last spoke, Daniele De Rossi, of course, was relieved of his duties, but there's also been unhappy players, a CEO who has gone. They have won a game in the meantime as well, but things aren't right at Roma, are they?
No, they're not right, but I mean, the best news is that they got the win last weekend against Udinese in a game that wasn't easy. And on top of it, it seems that Dovbyk, the Ukrainian striker they got from Girona last summer, started getting on well. So he scored 2 in the last 2 games. So he's an important player for Roma. And having Dybala free behind him to move all the way on the attack on all fronts and having him scoring goals, this is definitely good news for Roma in the future. But yes, it's been a massive week for them with plenty of excitement and not only positive one.
No, I mean, there's even been fan protests, hasn't there, over this?
Yeah, because I mean, the fans in Roma accepted the sacking of Mourinho in January 2024 only because he was replaced by a legend like Daniele De Rossi. And now having Daniele De Rossi sacked, not out of the blue because they had 3 points in 4 games and that was obviously not the start they were looking for, but sort of unexpected and definitely not wanted by the fans, was a big blow that made fan protest explode in the city.
Yeah, 4 games as well. It's not a huge amount of games.
No.
Let's just move on to some of the footballing action. I just thought Roma were an absolutely fascinating prospect and fascinating club at the moment. But let's just focus in on some of the games, shall we? Torino have been absolutely exceptional so far this season. They top Serie A. They host Lazio. Now, full disclosure, we're recording this on Wednesday. Lazio obviously have their game against their Dynamo Kyiv in Europe before that. But Torino, to me, in this market, in this game, look like a really, really good side to be keeping an eye on. They're playing really well.
Yes, they're playing well. They've got Zapata who's really, I don't know, on top of his form, I would say. I didn't trust him that much to get back to former performances, but he's doing very well. The Colombian striker has already scored a few goals and he's very well present. He's the captain. He's very important for the team. Vanoli brought a new mentality there, gelling very well together. Che Adams, the Scottish strikers they signed during the summer, is doing very, very well. He scored also last night, independently of the fact that they were kicked out of Coppa Italia by Empoli at home. But I mean, they played with different, let's say, starting 11 that they normally do during the week. So I expect them to field all of their starters at the weekend against Lazio. Nevertheless, it won't be an easy game because they have played during the midweek. Lazio also will play tonight during the midweek. I can expect them both scoring goals, especially if Lazio can retrieve Castellanos, who's been out at the weekend for a muscular injury. It won't be easy for none of them, in my opinion.
No. I think Torino might get the win. Samuele Ricci is a player I'm a huge fan of. I think he's absolutely brilliant in that Torino side. I think he's had a really good season so far as well. I quite fancy Torino to get the job done there, but it's going to be interesting. And let's move on to AC Milan against Lecce. Now, AC Milan, I kind of don't know what to make of them, really. They struggled. They didn't look right. They looked flat. But then they get the only win they probably would have cared about. And all of a sudden, it's a very different feeling at AC Milan now.
Yeah, definitely. After 6 consecutive defeats in the derby, they won a last grasp game on Sunday night with Gabbia Zeder. I mean, it's still much of a work in progress, I would say. AC Milan, they've got the best attack. They're the most prolific club of the league with 11 goal scores, but they also conceded 7. They got 9 different players on the score sheet so far. So there are positive aspects in Fonseca, let's say, offensive football or attacking-minded football, but obviously there are also dark sides, or to say shadows in it at the moment. So it's still much of a work in progress. But I mean, Leao hasn't shown yet any of his quality. And still AC Milan have 8 points, which is not great, but due to the ups and downs of all of the other clubs, is still 3 points away from the top of the league. So you can see it positively, you can see it negatively. Obviously, before the Inter game, before the derby, I would have said, well, poor start, sort of. But now they won the derby. That can obviously fuel them with a lot of energy. They don't have a midweek game this week, so they can carry on working at Milanello. So let's see what happens. I mean, Lecce shouldn't be the club who creates a lot of problems for them. Lecce will obviously defend as tight as possible and go on counter-attack, which is something that Lecce can do, definitely, in terms of, let's say, game plan. But I see AC Milan coming away with the 3 points. I mean, winning a derby and then not winning against Lecce would be like blowing all you've done the weekend before. So this is something that I don't think anyone really wants at AC Milan or can afford.
This is the madness of AC Milan at the moment, isn't it? I mean, the recent form is loss, draw, win, loss, win.
Yeah.
I mean, AC Milan at the moment are so hard to call. There is the quality there. There's that huge win we've mentioned. So maybe that will fire them on. But they're a very tough side to sort of get our teeth into at the moment. Still, they should probably get the job done against Lecce.
Yeah, but it's honestly still very much work in progress. Now they have started the weekend to display a 4-4-2 formation with Tammy Abraham and returning Morata from the start. This might help. With 4-2-3-1, they were honestly really weak at the back. They have conceded 7 so far. It's a lot of goal, only in 5 games, but at least they have scored in every single game they have played so far. In the season, and that's the positive they have to take. So that's where they want to carry on, let's say, investing and developing, and at the same time try to give more solidity to their defense, because without a solid defense, you don't win anything in football. There's no way you can win by only scoring more goals than the rest.
Eventually, your luck runs out.
So, theoretically, yes, but it's not in reality. You cannot. So.
No. It's unsustainable long term, but at least that big win against Inter Milan will at least put them in a slightly more confident mood. Speaking of Inter Milan, they started the season of all the big teams pretty much the best. Others were making silly mistakes. They weren't playing brilliantly, or they had fairly easy draws in the case of, for example, Juventus. The last few games, though, for Inter, it's a bit of a weird one. I mean, a 0-0 draw against Manchester City in the Champions League is a good result. It's just there's nothing wrong with that at all. But the draw
and the performance he came with.
So. Absolutely, yeah, brilliant performance. But the draw at Monza and obviously that derby loss, that's been overall probably a bad week or so for Inter.
Yes. So if you look at the results, definitely yes. But as we said before, their focus is on the league for sure. So what they have to win is the league title. You cannot expect them to win Champions League because of the many factors that play a role, and because of the many very strong clubs around Europe. So you can't expect Inter to win or predict Inter to win the Champions League, although they are the Italian club which are the most qualified, I will say, to get that title eventually, if possible, whatever, we will see.
I mean, finalists 2 years ago, weren't they, obviously, against Manchester City? But I mean, it's more the league results that I suppose have been bad. The Monza and obviously the AC Milan results.
Yeah, definitely. I didn't expect them to draw in Monza. I expected them to make the game and get with the 3 points against Monza ahead of Manchester City. I expected them to win the derby. They didn't win any of those games. In fact, they only got 1 point out of 6. I still wouldn't worry too much due to the fact that there have been ups and downs in all clubs. So for all clubs, so the top of the table is only 3 points away. Obviously, you can say that last year they had 15 points after 5 games. So full score. Now they only have 8, which is the half of it. So would you worry? Yes, on one side. Would you worry that Lautaro Martinez hasn't scored yet in the league. Yes, on one side, but consider that he had a summer full of work with Argentina in their Copa America. So he's struggling to find his form, but he spoke after the derby. Now is no time to speak. It's time to work. And I'm confident that they will come back. I mean, they will jump back. I mean, we still have to understand if they are as hungry as they were last season, but I cannot see them just playing a decent season. They have the quality and, let's say, the depth in the squad also to have motivated player throughout the season on the pitch. So I wouldn't worry too much. Obviously, this is not the start they expected. This is not the start they wanted, but fair enough. They should be happy that Juventus, AC Milan, Napoli also had their struggles at some point so far, and none of them has just run away with 15 points. That would make things difficult, but top of the table is like 11 points. It's 3 points away. It's not. And it's Torino there, it's Udinese there. I mean, it's clubs that in the long run you do expect to overtake easily.
It's been that's one of the reasons why this league's been so good so far this season.
Yeah,
everything's so wide open. No one's got 5 from 5. Everyone's scrapping, or everyone's had a bad game, or teams like Monza have pulled off great results. It's been an absolutely fascinating season so far. You mentioned Udinese there, very good at home with Blue Energy, back-to-back home wins. Obviously, the loss against Roma was not good, but they're not an easy side. Udinese, this is not a guaranteed 3 points for Inter.
No, because Udinese, okay. I mean, 2 years ago, they got a bad loss in Udine. Inter, I remember them losing 3-1 in a bad way, which was a proper slap in their face.
Yeah.
Last season didn't happen the same, but last season they had a fantastic season, Inter. So, I mean, they almost won anywhere away, to be honest. It's not an easy side. They are a tight side. They are a fighting, and solid side who can play counter-attack. I do expect Inter to make the game also in Udine. Inter will have to jump back at some point, so they will have to win this game, in my opinion. So, because they are the better side, still it's a difficult game, which might be decided in the second half, if you ask my opinion. But then again, it's too difficult to do prediction at the moment. Look at the derby, look at Como the other night against Atalanta away. It's honestly difficult. It's still only 5 weeks into the season, and it's honestly difficult. And a surprise is always around the corner. But if you ask me, I do expect Inter to jump back.
But of course, wide open games often means there's often very good value to be found as well.
Yeah.
Genoa take on Juventus. Juventus have had a hat-trick of league 0-0s. On the face of it, that's not very good until you start to maybe look at it in a bit more detail and you say, well, hang on a second. It's Napoli, away to tricky Empoli, and obviously at home to Roma. Despite Roma's problems, that's still not an appalling result. Juventus do need to get going, though, in front of goal, don't they?
Yeah, they do. On the other side, they can look at the situation and say, look, we've got 5 clean sheets in a row. We are the best defense. We have the best defense in Europe. We haven't conceded yet. So the defense is the, let's say, sector of the team on which Thiago Motta has worked from the beginning of the preseason. The important players up front, apart from Yildiz and Vlahovic, who are not an important player, but I'm thinking of Cobb Miners, I'm thinking of Nico Gonzalez. They have all arrived at the very end of the transfer market. Up front is where the manager, let's say, has the less impact in a club, because what you can really train in a football team is defense and defensive movements. Up front, you need to have that extra quality of individual player who can, let's say, invent also something.
Well, defending is learned, isn't it? I think sometimes, whereas attacking is kind of inherent in the player as well, isn't it? That
exactly.
Not to say, I mean, defending can be inherent as well. You can know where to position yourself. You can know when to attack a ball, but it is quote unquote easier to train discipline and formation and defense than it is to train someone to do something magical.
Yeah, definitely. That's exactly what I'm saying. So the players a good part of the players who will be responsible for that extra spark up front have arrived at the end of the transfer window.
Yeah.
So they do need a little bit of time to let's say gel into the team, and having a solid defense. So 5 clean sheets in a row is having a solid defense, is a very, 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 very good surface to build the team on top. It's actually very good. Yes, they have struggled up front. Vlahovic, who is expected to score loads this season, started off quite well, but then again in the last 2 games he was not. He was underperforming. But I mean, let's give Juventus or Thiago Motta the credit that he has started. He hasn't started long. He hasn't been there for a long time. And also at Bologna, he did a fantastic season on his second season in charge, not in the first one. So let's give Juventus a little bit of time to develop into what Thiago Motta expects them to be.
And they've had 2 games.
But then again, I agree. Sorry. Yeah.
I was going to say they've had 2 3-0 wins as well. So I suppose they have shown that there is some goals in there.
Yeah, and they scored also 3 in the Champions League against PSV Eindhoven. I mean, there are goals in there. The quality is there. Sometimes it needs a little bit of time to just tick, do puff, and then the magic starts. We can't predict it. I can't say, okay, it's going to start this weekend or next one or the next one again or the following one. But I see Juventus having enough quality up front to create goals. We were talking about Dovbyk and Roma earlier on. I mean, it also took him a few weeks to get into it, to understand and blah, blah, blah. And then he started off. So, I mean, those players that Juventus have both already know our league, because one comes from Fiorentina, the other one from Atalanta. But changing club, playing at Juventus is different than playing in Bergamo or in Firenze. So it's 2 pair of shoes. So in terms of expectation, in terms of clubs, in terms of everything. So let's give them a little bit of time. I think Juventus should see more the positive than the negatives at the moment. Yes, it's true. They need to get going in front of goal, but they will eventually.
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Let's move on to Napoli, who obviously had a nightmare start to the season. Since then, though, plenty of goals scored, and then there's nothing wrong with a 0-0 draw away at Juventus. They're taking on a Monza side, though. 3 points from 5 games, Monza. They've obviously had the draw against Inter Milan, albeit that was at home. And there's no way that Alessandro Nesta can be necessarily down on his side's performance so far this year. Monza completely unfancied throughout the course of the season, understandably. They've gone quite well. Could they cause a problem for Napoli? That long pause says no.
Napoli. No, I mean Napoli are playing in midweek, also Italian Cup. So Coppa Italia, Palermo, exactly. Who's quite a strong Serie B side, so to say. But Coppa Italia is an important trophy for Napoli this year due to the fact that they don't play in Europe. So having the opportunity to give also backup players the opportunity to show their quality and blah, blah, blah. So this is a trophy that Napoli will take seriously also because it gives the opportunity to qualify for UEFA Europa League directly. And it's a trophy. So winning a trophy at the end of the season, let it be Daniele Verri Cup, it's still important, so it's better than nothing. So it gives sense and meaning to a season in the end. So they will take it seriously, but then again, they will play in front of a full house also the weekend, and it will be a very loud full house. They've got plenty of enthusiasm. We've seen McTominay playing a very convincing game at the weekend. I mean, Lukaku on the score sheet again, Kvaratskhelia decisive. I can't see Monza creating too many problems due to the euphorism and enthusiasm that is streaming through the city at the moment, to be honest, and through the club. Because, I mean, all of a sudden they found ambitions after a very poor start against Verona and after a devastating season that they had last year. So, but all of a sudden, with a little bit of luck, with Bologna and Parma and this and that, but also with performances. And Cagliari also, so 4-0, but I mean, the result wasn't reflecting what actually happened on the pitch until the 70th minute at least. Yeah. But I mean, I see Napoli growing at the moment, so their trajectory is going up, their trend, rather than down. And I can't see Monza being too much of a threat for them. So
maybe
Monza
will score. I mean, they've scored last 3 games, haven't they? I mean, they've also got a cup game midweek against Brescia, who've had an okay start to the season in Serie B. I think they're 5th or 6th, Brescia in Serie B. So that's not an easy game either, really. But I've just been impressed by Monza, how they've been set up so far. That draw against Inter is obviously the jewel in the crown so far. They need to win games. If they want to stay in the league, they need to win games. And it might not be away at the Maradona, but I've just been a little bit impressed with Monza so far, considering the gap between them and most of the other sides in this division. Daniele, thank you so much as always for your fantastic expertise. We will speak to you ahead of the next round of fixtures.